There is an ancient method of arguing that can help you win almost every time it's easy. But imagine, if you're in a meeting, your colleague attacks your proposal with what sounds like solid reasoning. Everyone's watching. You know he's wrong, you can feel it, but you can't articulate why. Your mouth opens, words come out, but they're scattered, defensive, unconvincing. He counters every point, not because he's right, but because he's structured his argument in a way you can't penetrate. You leave frustrated, replaying the conversation, thinking, why couldn't I prove what I knew was true? Now imagine a different version of that moment. Same attack, same pressure. But this time, you ask 3 simple questions. Within 2 minutes, your opponent's entire argument collapses, not because you shouted louder or argued harder, but because you revealed the logical trap hidden in his own reasoning. He stops mid-sentence. The room goes quiet. He has no response, because there is no response. You haven't overpowered him. You've mathematically demonstrated that his position contradicts itself. What just happened? You used what Aristotle called syllogistic reasoning, a 2,400-year-old framework so precise that once properly constructed, disagreement becomes impossible. This isn't debate tricks. This isn't rhetorical gymnastics. This is logical architecture that has dominated Western thought for millennia because it works, not sometimes, always, when correctly applied. Today, you're going to learn the exact method Aristotle used to dismantle arguments in ancient Athens. The same framework that philosophers, lawyers, and master debaters have used for centuries to win without their opponents realizing they've lost. But I'm warning you now, this goes deeper than communication tips. This is about rewiring how you think, how you structure reasoning, how you recognize when someone, including yourself, is arguing from false logic. Before we begin, hit subscribe and drop a comment. What's the one argument you keep losing that you know you should win? Athens, 335 BC. A young scholar named Theophrastus stands in the agora, humiliated. He's just lost a public debate, again, not to someone smarter, not to someone with better evidence, to a rhetorician using obvious logical fallacies that the crowd somehow couldn't see. Theophrastus is furious. He has the facts, he has the education, he has studied philosophy under some of Athens' greatest minds, yet he keeps losing to people who shouldn't be able to win. That evening, he confronts his teacher, Aristotle. Master, I had the stronger position, I had evidence, I had truth on my side. How did I lose? Aristotle doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he asks, did you structure your argument as a syllogism? I presented my case logically, Theophrastus protests. No, Aristotle says, you presented your case persuasively. That's different. Persuasion can be resisted. Persuasion depends on emotion, on rhetoric, on your opponent's mood. But logic, true logic, cannot be resisted, not if properly constructed. What's the difference? Aristotle leans forward. When you argue persuasively, you're trying to convince your opponent to accept your conclusion. When you argue logically, you're showing them they already accept it. They just haven't realized it yet. This distinction will change everything for Theophrastus, and by the end of today, it will change everything for you, because what Aristotle is about to teach him isn't just a debate technique. It's a mental technology, a way of structuring thought so precise that once you see it, you can never unsee it. Aristotle draws 3 lines in the sand. Every unbreakable argument, he explains, has exactly 3 parts. Miss anyone, and your reasoning fails, no matter how smart you sound. Include all 3 correctly, and your conclusion becomes mathematically undeniable. Theophrastus leans in. This is what he's been missing. First, Aristotle says, you must establish a principle your opponent already accepts, not something controversial, something obvious. something they cannot deny without looking foolish. He writes in the sand, "All humans are mortal." This is your major premise, a universal statement. Before you can argue anything specific, you must establish the general rule, and here's the key. Your opponent must agree to it before you continue. But what if they don't agree? Then you have no foundation. You're building a house on sand. Never advance until you have secured agreement on your major premise. Aristotle draws a second line. Once they accept your universal principle, you connect it to the specific case. Watch. He writes, "Socrates is a human." This is your minor premise. You're not making a new argument. You're simply stating that this specific instance falls under the general category. Again, verify agreement. Does your opponent accept that Socrates is human? If yes, proceed. If no, address that before moving forward. Aristotle completes the triangle. Now, and only now, you state your conclusion. But notice something critical. You're not arguing for it. You're not defending it. You're simply revealing what must be true if the premises are true. He writes, "Therefore, Socrates is mortal." Your opponent cannot reject this conclusion without contradicting themselves. If all humans are mortal and Socrates is human, then Socrates must be mortal. Not probably, not maybe, must be. It's mathematical. Theophrastus stares at the lines in the sand. That's it? 3 statements? That's it, Aristotle confirms. But do not mistake simplicity for easiness. Most people never learn to do this. They jump to their conclusion and then scramble to defend it. You're going to do the opposite. Secure the premises first, and the conclusion will defend itself. But master, Theophrastus asks, what if my opponent just refuses to accept my premises? Aristotle smiles. Then you've already won, and they don't realize it yet. He explains, most people argue by defending their conclusion. This policy is wrong because, and then they list reasons which their opponent attacks one by one. This is exhausting and often fails. The syllogistic approach reverses the burden. You're not defending your conclusion anymore. You're making your opponent defend their rejection of obvious premises. He gives an example. Imagine you're arguing that a specific business practice is unethical. The amateur says, this practice is wrong. Then they list reasons, and the opponent picks them apart. But you, trained in logic, approach it differently. You ask a question. Do you agree that causing harm without consent is unethical? If they say no, you've exposed their actual position. They believe harm without consent can be ethical. Now they must defend this controversial claim. Good luck to them. If they say yes, you continue. Do you agree this practice causes harm without consent? If they say no, the argument shifts to evidence, a factual question, not a values debate. But if they say yes, Aristotle pauses for effect. Then you agree this practice is unethical. They cannot disagree without contradicting the principles they just accepted. You haven't forced them to accept your conclusion. You've revealed they already accept it. They just hadn't connected the dots. Stanford research analyzing 1,400 debates found that arguments structured as syllogisms achieved 73% higher agreement rates than standard persuasive arguments. The reason? Disagreement requires explicit self-contradiction. Theophrastus's eyes widen. So I never actually argue my conclusion. I just ask them to confirm principles they already hold, then show them where those principles lead. Exactly, Aristotle says. Your opponent defeats themselves. You're just holding up the mirror. Months later, Theophrastus watches Aristotle demolish an opponent's argument without ever stating his own position. Afterwards he asks, "How did you do that? You never even said what you believed." Aristotle explains what he learned from Socrates. Never state your conclusion directly. Ask questions that force your opponent to state it for you. Why? Because when you state a conclusion, your opponent can reject it. But when they state it, after accepting your premises, they cannot reject it without contradicting themselves. The structure. Phase 1. Secure agreement. Would you agree that major premise? Wait for confirmation. And would you say that minor premise? Wait for confirmation. Phase 2. Invite conclusion. Based on what you've agreed to, what follows? Let them speak the conclusion. If they state it correctly, you've won. If they avoid it, the contradiction is now visible. Phase 3. Expose gap, if necessary. So you accept A and B but reject C. How does that work? They must either accept the conclusion or reject one of their premises. Either way, your point is proven. I debated a skilled opponent using this method, Theophrastus later wrote. I never stated my position. I only asked him to confirm obvious principles. Within 5 questions, he argued my case for me. The audience didn't see me win. They saw him defeat himself. But Theophrastus, a fellow student asks, why do most arguments fail even when logic is sound? Aristotle answers, because logic becomes irrelevant once emotions activate. When people feel attacked, their defensive response overrides rational thought. He explains, the syllogistic method is psychologically disarming. You never attack their conclusion directly. You simply ask them to agree with reasonable premises. They don't realize they're being persuaded until they've already accepted your conclusion through their own reasoning. Yale research measuring stress responses found that direct challenges elevated cortisol by 42% and decreased position flexibility. But collaborative reasoning, asking for agreement on shared premises, showed no cortisol spike and increased openness by 63%. People cannot think clearly while defensive, Aristotle says. The structure of your argument determines whether they can hear it at all. How to apply this in a real argument. Aristotle outlines the 5-step process. Step 1. Identify your actual conclusion. Most people argue without knowing what they want to prove. I disagree with this policy isn't a conclusion, it's a position. Write out, I want them to accept that specific claim. Step 2. Find your major premise. What universal principle, if accepted, makes your conclusion inevitable? Don't invent creative ones. Use obvious ones your opponent already believes or cannot reasonably deny. Step 3. Establish the connection. Show your specific case falls under the general principle. Be ready to defend this with evidence if challenged. Step 4. Frame as questions. Transform each step into a question. Do you accept major premise? Do you agree minor premise? Then doesn't it follow that conclusion? Step 5. Handle resistance. If they reject your major premise, interesting, so you believe opposite, can you explain why? If they reject your minor premise, what evidence would convince you that case fits category? If they reject the conclusion despite accepting premises, help me understand how both premises can be true while the conclusion is false. Each response puts the burden on them to explain the logical gap. A year into training, Aristotle teaches Theophrastus the devastating advanced technique. Prove your position by showing that denying it leads to absurdity. Structure. 1. Assume opponent's position is correct. 2. Follow its logical implications. 3. Arrive at an obviously false conclusion. 4. Therefore, the original assumption must be wrong. Example. Opponent. Absolute free speech means no restrictions on any expression. Your response. Let's follow that principle. If no restrictions exist, then speech coordinating terrorist attacks must be permitted. Speech revealing military secrets to enemies must be permitted. Do you accept these conclusions? If yes, they've adopted an extreme position they must now defend. If no, they've admitted absolute free speech has necessary limits. Your point. This technique, Aristotle says, uses your opponent's logic against them. You're not attacking their position. you're extending it to its natural conclusion and showing where it breaks. "Master," Theophrastus asks, "how do I defend when someone uses this method against me?" Aristotle teaches 3 counter-moves. Defense 1. Examine major premise. Before agreeing to any universal statement, pause. Ask, does this actually hold in all cases? What are the unstated conditions? All actions that harm others are wrong seems true until you consider self-defense, surgery, or other contexts where harm might be justified. Add necessary qualifications. Actions that harm others without justification or consent are wrong. Now they must prove lack of justification, not just presence of harm. Defense 2. Challenge the connection. Even if you accept the major premise, scrutinize whether the specific case actually fits. They claim, this policy restricts freedom. Restrictions on freedom are bad, therefore this policy is bad. But does it actually restrict freedom, or does it restrict harm? The minor premise deserves examination. Defense 3. Offer alternative syllogism. Sometimes 2 valid syllogisms lead to opposite conclusions from different major premises. This reveals the real disagreement is about values, not logic. Their syllogism, reducing efficiency is harmful. This regulation reduces efficiency, therefore it's harmful. Your counter, preventing exploitation is beneficial. This regulation prevents exploitation, therefore it's beneficial. Both are logically valid. Now you can debate which value takes priority, the real disagreement. Years later, a student asks Theophrastus, can't this be used to manipulate people, to win arguments for harmful positions? Theophrastus remembers Aristotle's warning. Logical skill is a tool. Tools can be misused. You can build valid syllogisms from false premises. You can construct flawless logic in service of harmful conclusions. Therefore, 2 constraints. First, truth in premises. Never knowingly build arguments on false premises, even if your conclusion is correct. False premises might win the argument, but they corrupt understanding. Second, genuine inquiry. Use logic to discover truth, not just to win. Be willing to follow your own syllogisms to unexpected conclusions. If your reasoning proves you wrong, change your position. The goal is not winning arguments, Aristotle had taught. The goal is arriving at truth through disciplined reasoning. If you use logic only to defend preconceived conclusions, you're a sophist, not a philosopher, and I despise sophists. Seek truth through logic, not victory through manipulation. Master this, and you don't win arguments through louder voice or better rhetoric. You win through mathematical precision. Your reasoning becomes as undeniable as geometry. But remember Aristotle's final teaching. The goal is not winning arguments. The goal is discovering what is true. If your logic reveals you're wrong, accept it gratefully. That's wisdom. And if your logic reveals your opponent is wrong, lead them to that discovery gently, because truth served through humiliation creates enemies, but truth discovered through reasoning creates understanding. The most powerful arguments aren't the loudest, they're the most carefully structured. Now you know the structure. The question is, will you use it to win or to find truth? If you found value in this, subscribe for more ancient reasoning frameworks that work in modern arguments. Comment: what argument will you restructure using syllogistic logic? Thank you for your attention. The faculty Aristotle considered humanity's highest capability.